Whether we're talking about wards, boroughs, or the new Senedd constituencies, there is an enormous diversity in the demographics, the geography, and therefore the challenges facing the people kind of in these regions. There's a lovely shot. Actually, it's a shot of Merthyr, I think, there. But you get a feel for the diversity of some of those sort of southern Welsh constituencies, and they are hugely diverse. Back to Charlotte and Nathan.
It's a really lovely constituency and also a very diverse constituency. Overall, made up of the northern and eastern parts of the city of Cardiff, and some commuter towns on the outside, some commuter areas which have been more connected through the recent Cardiff Metro. And then also we've got some more kind of like leafy village areas like Taftswell and things. And within that, there's a lot of economic disparity. There's a huge population difference between people from different class backgrounds, people from different cultural backgrounds. So it's a real melting pot of a constituency, which will be very interestingly reflected, I think, in the seats that get chosen.
In my capacity as a councillor, of course, we have a big role to play with the transition to the electric arc furnace in Talbot itself. But in my role as obviously the lead list candidate in Brycheiniog Tawe Nedd, that constituency stretches 91 miles from SA1 in Swansea all the way through to the north, well, just south of Newtown, and I've been miles and the transport is terrible, right? Mm-hmm. And, I think just going around that new constituency, it's a genuine cross-section of Wales. We've got Wales' second city, Swansea, and the urban areas in just adjacent to the city centre. We've got towns like Neath and where I represent Skewen, relatively dense population centres. But then you have places like Billthwells, Llanbrynod, and all of those little, and Brecon, of course. Hay-on-Wye, Gwaun-Cegirwyn. We have rural settlements, we have farms. It's a genuine cross-section, and I think I'd mirror what Charlotte said. And if we do well here, which hopefully we will, that will kind of show through the rest of Wales, because we will be kind of that sense check, I think.
There's some interesting chat going on. Firstly, Plaid Cymru are a bit like the SNP. The reason I call them centre-right is because their economic policies are centre-right, but they're a bit like the SNP in that you, particularly with younger members, but Gareth, I'm looking at you in the chat. You are one of their younger members for Plaid, of course. There's a huge diversity within those nationalist parties of like in the rural areas, much more classic conservatives, and actually in those urban areas, there is a much more progressive bent to a sizable chunk of the party. So this is kind of why we talked about it at the start. I think it's worth exploring the diversity. There is a big difference between English nationalism and provincial country national, Scottish, Welsh, Irish nationalism. That is different. So. The other thing that's popping up is the boundaries are completely bonkers. Yeah, those boundaries are wild. Talking of which, let's kind of go into some little specifics. It's a transport podcast after all. What are the transport challenges facing these two constituencies? First, let's talk about Caerdydd Ffynnon Taf. Caerdydd, that's just Cardiff and Gymraeg. Let's have a proper look, shall we? So here's a nice full picture from the official map of the constituency, and you've got. It's kind of got the whole like St Mellons and Llanrhymni and this whole area here, which is just like one giant sort of 80s suburb. I mean, not quite, but it's kind of got that vibe to it. It's basically everything bad about last week's episode. You've got Eastern Ave, so the kind of the A48. The number of times I've driven that road. The kind of the route into Cardiff. It doesn't have the centre. Llandaff Fields is here, so it doesn't have the main centre. It's not got that big urban lump of very dense sort of studenty and sort of mixed. Kind of mixed demographic that you've got down in the city core, and then it doesn't have some of the lesser well-off places down this side as well. It doesn't have Canton in it with its very kind of broad mixture. It's got everything kind of north of that, though. It's quite sort of light industrial, retail, and suburban, actually, in the area that it has. It's this whole section bounded by the M4, with a few exceptions, Hroth perhaps one of the key exceptions. A large area of this is very, like, post-war suburban. with everything that brings and all the challenges it brings. Meanwhile, on the other side of the M4, you've got very rural all of a sudden, because the M4 provides such a boundary. You know, you've got Castellcoch up here. You've got Taf's Well with the kind of the railway works up. It's quite a range, a kind of a diversity up there. Very different challenges, but of course the population is much lower up there as well. So you end up with a different sort of level of necessity of delivery as well. But it's an interesting, I would say, primarily suburban constituency, with what that brings with it. Secondly, Brycheiniog Tawe Nedd. So this is huge. It's absolutely massive. I mean, you've got down here, you've got Abertawe, you've got Swansea, a bit of it, like little slices of it down here. You've got Neath, mostly. And then you've got the huge kind of gaps, these massive gaps that are lovely for cycling. Yeah, when I did my North-South Wales cycle a very long time ago, I was coming down through, so it's Elan Valley, Rhyder, then down, and then I went out here, and then down into Bilth, and then I did this road down into Brecon, and then over here, and anyway, it's fab. I've sliced through this, and it's glorious. I camped kind of here, and just got woken up by the army proceeding to shoot itself out here, where they have their little camp. Anyway, huge, diverse, and complex sort of constituency with a lot going on. Mostly rural in terms of landmass, but yeah, crikey, it's a fascinating, and you've right. The English border is up here. It's a huge constituency, massive.